Up, up, down, down, left, right, BA start, or BA start select if you were playing with 2 players. But that was the cheat that gave you 30 lives in Contra for the NES. I still remember that today, just like I remember where every warp whistle is in Super Mario Bros. 3. This stuff is burned into my brain and I doubt I'll ever forget it. But games and gaming were a little simpler back then. Not to mention complete upon release. There was no updates, there was no patches. We really just had a couple of buttons and often brutal difficulty. If you know, you know. But I've played everything. Atari, ColecoVision, the Panasonic 3DO, every Nintendo console, every PlayStation iteration. Though I do have to admit, I've never actually owned an Xbox. I just was never really a fan of the controller layout, but that's just me. But I've lived through the intoxicating highs of a 40-hour grind while holding a job and maintaining a relationship. And I've also experienced the dizzying lows of giving away shifts and staving off an expensive Red Bull addiction. Not to mention I also survived the great PSN crash of 2011. But memory cards to motion controls, pinball to VR, I have seen it all. And having lived through it all, I've seen how games have changed, and I've also seen how gaming has changed, especially for people my age, over 40. See, back in the day, the challenge was in the game itself. Donkey Kong Country, Battletoads, The Lion King. Games like this were no joke, and they're iconic and regarded for that for good reason. But now, the challenge kind of begins with the download, and that's even if you still buy physical copies. Suddenly, we're wrestling patches, day 1 DLC. You're trying to find 200 gigs of storage just so you can boot the next game you want to play. And like back in the day, you had the whole weekend to play a game. Now it takes the whole weekend just to install the game. Instead, you're just sitting there watching the progress bar grow with your laundry pile and your takeout containers. And also back in the 80s when I was growing up, game tutorials didn't really hold our hands like crosswalk guards, you know what I mean? Back then, your game tutorial was the game over screen. Or it might have said, you died, or continue, and followed by this soul-crushing 10-second timer. All of it, though, retro passive aggression for, you suck. And that was your teacher. It was brutal, silent, and unforgiving. Extra lives weren't in loot boxes. You had to earn those in a lot of cases. And they were coveted. Cheat codes were whispered secrets on playgrounds at recess, like dingy tavern rumors in Skyrim. That's where you got your Contra code. See, but now the boss battle isn't just Bowser anymore. It's managing massive inventories. And we went from fire flowers to Nuki leaves and magic mushrooms to massive skill trees and crafting menus and dialogue branches, right? Like, we've come a long way from 2D platformers and 32 gig RPGs. A lot of modern games have intense game mechanics or endless menus of critical micromanagement by comparison, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just drastically different. See, but I play games to play, the key word there being play. I've had actual jobs with less onboarding than The Witcher 3 or Kingdom Come Deliverance. There is some steep learning curves out there. And I've got maybe 45 minutes tops before real life missions kick in, okay? I don't want to spend it trying to figure out how to play. You gotta memorize crafting recipes, complex magic systems, and world of lore on top of basic controls, right? Back in the day, I jumped on Goombas, I killed the Goombas, then I rescued the princess, and it felt accomplished. That was victory. That was fun, even if she was always in another castle. Now, it seems like what's regarded as fun is a multiplayer shitshow with rampant trash talk and premium pop culture skins. And personally, I don't even play online anymore. I don't enjoy getting spanked and listening to some kid from another country calling me unk or boomer in some language I don't actually understand while he dish rags me at Fortnite, and I don't even like Fortnite. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not yelling at clouds here, I'm not just some old guy out there talking about the way things used to be, or I don't know, maybe I am. Some modern games are absolute masterpieces. There's no doubt about that. I'm not trying to take away anything from some of these modern games. But the problem is I personally just don't have the time to give these kinds of games the attention they deserve. And I think that's the case for a lot of guys my age as well. But it's cool though, you know what I mean? And another problem with time too is I have such a backlog of games that I've purchased on sale, at least a couple of dozen, that I've never even booted up before. So most of the time, I'm just sitting there wondering what it is I'm even going to play, And then half the time, I don't decide on anything, and I just put on Red Dead 2, because, I don't know, there's just something about Red Dead Redemption 2. I've finished it twice, and I think I've seen only half of what it actually has to offer. It's so huge. And, and that's just the scope of another thing, too, with how massive these games are, requiring, as little as 80 hours to finish it, and that's just sticking to the main campaign. And it's very hard as a husband and father to commit to something like that, right? So often I end up just getting kind of intimidated by the thing and just not playing anything at all. But, you know, I know games have never been about 100% completion or microtransactions or creative name calling from some lippy brat halfway around the world. It's about escaping and it's about having fun, and, you know, that's the real master sword when you think about it, when you can actually find something that you can do that with. And, you know, sometimes I think that's all it really takes, right? It's jumping into some old games, you jump over some Koopas, you know, maybe you go save Hyrule for, you know, the umpteenth time. Either way, it's always a blast, you know, whether you're blasting Metroids with Samus or waiting till the point in the game where you get to shoot Micah, because let's face it, we all look forward to that. But, you know, we only got an hour, so in that hour, we're just trying to get the best of it that we can. I don't know, maybe it's just me. So let me know in the comments, is this you too? Are you trying to find an hour to play some games, but you're just having a hard time doing it? Or maybe you have found the solution. Either way, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you again in the next one, you know? And in the meantime, Micah, seriously, that guy.